Mid-Stage Yuanying's Korean calendar. In order to obtain the materials for refining, one of the materials for the three-leaf fan, the red fire glue scales, disguised as a golden elixir, infiltrated a first-class demon hunting team. This team had a reason for the leader's disguise. Initially thought there was only one level 8 demon beast, but unexpectedly, another one appeared along the way, of equal level. This threw the hunting team into panic, but at that moment, a piercing bow sound shot out from the team. Yuanying's disguise. Still in the mid-stage of Yuanying, the crowd was thrown into chaos. Everyone was filled with surprise and excitement. That burly man in the Yuanying stage was stunned, then equally delighted. Could it be that the South Sea Gate sensed something? Intentionally arranged another Yuanying in their team, the disguised one thought to themselves. But seeing the round waist was about to act, the burly man had no time to think further. After a swift turn, he transformed into a blue light, rushing towards the other side where the blue demon cloud gathered. The rest of the disguised ones saw there was a Yuanying, each prepared to fend off the two level 8 demon beasts. Gaining confidence, they transformed into various colored shield lights, flying towards the remaining directions, block those demon clouds on the way. Soon after, a brilliant light shone from all directions. The rumbling sounds continued without pause. Unlike the other directions, Hanli stood still in the center, completely unmoving. A layer of pale purple ice flames enveloped her. All around were hellish seas of fire, making a sizzling sound. These sounds were nothing compared to the earth-shattering noises from other directions. Naturally, they were insignificant, and a few dozen feet away, a humanoid beast, half human and half proud, was standing in a pillar of fire, coldly staring at her. Although this figure resembled a man, its body was covered in fist-sized, gleaming red scales. It was spewing out strands of red leaves of varying thickness. It was indeed eating fire peppers. Looks like I really came to the right place this time. Level 8 fire peppers. This is much stronger than the previous. Level 7. I bet the scales on you are even more effective. Right. Hanli suddenly smiled brightly. You're the humanoid fire pepper eater that's been after me. Fresh food was taken aback. Then a flash of green light appeared in his eyes. With his mouth slightly open, he said, revealing rows of sharp, snow-white fangs. It sends shivers down your spine. Meanwhile, the flames around surged up by 3 points. The momentum became even more astonishing. But don't be fooled by her delicate struggle. Inside, she was filled with unease. This was a human who had plunged in. Not only was he in the mid-stage of the nascent soul, but his ice attribute was also profoundly mysterious. He showed no fear of the demonic fire he had cultivated for years. This had already crippled most of his abilities, and for some reason, seeing Hanli's calm demeanor, sent chills through his heart. He felt an ominous sense of impending doom. This made the demon even more anxious. When I arrived, I heard there were only level 7 fire pepper eaters here. Now with your little guy around, I naturally lost interest. But since you've already formed your cultivation, I'm not particularly interested in taking your life. How about this? If you're willing to hand over a few of your life tokens from your neck, and then leave with your group, I'll let you go this time. After Hanli chuckled, he calmly said, You want my life tokens? You really have a big mouth. Just a mere mid-stage nascent soul. Just a mid-stage modification of a Yuanying. You dare to be this arrogant? Let me turn you to ashes. Go dream underground in broad daylight. This blazing gel is blindingly sharp. It's like touching a sensitive spot. It immediately erupts in fury. The scales of my true form are all scorched. They come with me since birth. The quantity varies. But, as the years go by, these scales have absorbed a lot of my wealth and magic. They are almost as precious as the demon's core. Once lost, my cultivation would instantly drop by over half, igniting my rage. Enraged, this demon, in a fit of fury, rolled in the fire column. With a soft thud, the fire column scattered. A red dragon, about 7 or 8 jong long, with a girth like a tree trunk, suddenly appeared in the flames. Now, he has cast aside all previous concerns, only wanting to crush Hanlis. Then, using demonic fire, to offer up the beast's true form for this deal. With a fierce roar, a lava-like crimson liquid spewed out, directly bursting forth. Upon seeing this, the creature was taken aback. The corner of her eyebrow lifted slightly, transforming the liquid mixture. It's truly not easy to refine the waste fire to this level, but it seems I have to do it myself. She said this aloud. However, Hanli didn't dare to be negligent. She clapped her hands and gave herself a tap on the back of her head. A pure white golden pearl was sprayed out from her mouth. It was the already refined attribute-efficient snow gold pearl. As soon as the pearl left her mouth, it swelled up wildly in the wind. It grew to the size of a fist. It shot straight across to absorb. At the same time, Hanli let out a soft drip sound. She reached out and pointed at the pearl from a distance. A faint, soft chant escaped her lips. Suddenly, a large purple flame burst out from the pearl. It quickly condensed into a thick purple fire gel. Holding the large blood crystal pearl, the gel easily took shape. Without hesitation, it shot forward. The tail of the gel collided with the crimson flames. A loud sizzling sound erupted. Following that, a thick white mist rapidly rose. Both were engulfed within it. In the haze, a purple dragon seemed to appear. I sprayed the pearl from my mouth. The puffed-up face forced the flames to retreat step by step. It was a fiery reef. Seeing this, a hint of unease emerged from the tomb. But then, a fierce light flickered. A brilliant radiance burst forth from her body. A sharp sound echoed from his mouth. The sea of flames near Han Li was filled with laughter. The flames rolled continuously. Then, a massive wave of fire rose over 10 feet high. With an overwhelming force, it pressed down on Han Li from both sides. Han Li let out a cold laugh at this sight. Rubbing his hands together, he gently swept to the sides. After a moment, a new purple light flickered. A clear, crisp sound rang out. 2 towering structures of gold and silver ice rose from the ground. The pale purple light shimmered continuously above them. They abruptly blocked the waves of fire on both sides. Just then, the distant fire reef suddenly shook. Its size shrank several times in an instant, transforming into the size of a tent. Then, the flames from its mouth stopped. With a whoosh, it transformed into a streak of red light, shooting straight towards Han Li's chicken coop. The speed was astonishing, crossing over 20 feet in the blink of an eye. It reached the spot where Han Li had once stood. At the same time, both claws were raised, taking an attacking stance. It turned out that this delicate demon fire was ineffective, and it planned to rely on its powerful demon body to approach Han Li, aiming to catch him off guard with a claw and kill him. The moment she saw Huo Zhao, she quickly moved in front of him. Despite the tension, her face revealed a delicate charm. A finger from her elegant robe trembled slightly. A brilliant beam shot out from her fingertip. In the blink of an eye, it vanished without a trace. At the same time, a thunderous roar echoed from behind. A pair of silvery wings suddenly appeared. With a gentle flap, a glow burst forth, just as a pair of claws wrapped in red light were about to strike. Han Li's figure disappeared in the brilliance. Qi Huo Zhao swayed. The rooster suddenly found itself in empty air. Almost simultaneously, a sharp sound of something slicing through the air rang in his ears. The sound was not loud, but a crystal-clear red needle appeared out of nowhere beside him. It aimed directly at Qi Huo Zhao's vital point and plunged down fiercely. Meanwhile, the flames around Qi Huo Zhao swirled restlessly, only able to obstruct slightly. The needle swiftly broke through after a flash. It was that exceptionally sharp essence needle. The needle was silent, incredibly fast. Caught off guard, Qi Huo Zhao was unexpectedly struck beside him. Naturally, he was so frightened that his soul nearly left his body. He couldn't think much further. He couldn't think too much about it. I can only try my best to piece together my head. But it's a bit too late. A soft sound echoed. I held my breath tightly. A scream of agony escaped. A claw covered most of my face. Blood flowed down the fingers. A flying needle. It pierced directly through my face. It shot out from the other side of my cheek. Although this needle was sharp, it was refined from a living material. The innate abilities it carried couldn't inflict too much damage on me. However, as it pierced my cheek, under Han Li's mental command, its size instantly swelled several times. Thus, the hole in my face was as wide as a thumb. This also caused unbearable pain in my waist. But before I could explode in anger, a thunderous sound erupted behind me. Han Li suddenly appeared. At the same time, he waved his arm. A golden light, about 10 feet long, surged down with great momentum. But within the heart of the red fire reef, I couldn't care less about the intense pain on my face. The golden light flashed wildly. My body swelled in size. Like a fierce fan, it swept towards Han Li. It doesn't matter at all. First, let's smash Han Li into pieces. Han Li was taken aback by this. This monster truly lives up to its reputation as a spirit beast of heaven and earth. Its reaction speed is incredibly fast, unlike ordinary humans. Under his sudden attack, there were hardly any who could resist. Thinking this way in his heart, he focused his mind. The golden ring tilted slightly. It first struck at the monster's tail. As a result, when the two met, the golden light cleaved through the red light. It solidly struck the monster's tail. The fire monster's heart trembled. It hurriedly gathered all its strength to its tail. The tail and scales suddenly became transparent, turning red. With a loud bang, the golden and red lights clashed spectacularly. It was dazzling to the eyes. Han Li squinted his eyes. His pupils flickered with blue light. He immediately saw the situation clearly. He closed his mouth and the golden light that splashed out did not expand into a barrier. Instead, After cleaving through the scales, it only penetrated 1/3 of the monster's tail. It was temporarily blocked by a hard bone. His gaze flickered. He used both hands to dig in, just as he was about to retract the flying sword and fight again. At that moment, a tremendous suction force emerged from the tail of the glue, trapping the flying sword firmly in place, unable to move. Without the magic weapon, let's see how you defend yourself. The fiery gaze revealed a wild, overflowing laughter. Suddenly, he turned around and opened his mouth. Red spikes flickered, and a bead the size of a fist appeared faintly in his mouth. His pupils constricted slightly, instantly recognizing this object. It seemed he knew he was not a match for the one he was facing. Taking advantage of the chance to trap the life-saving magic weapon, he steeled his heart and prepared to directly spray out the waste pill to attack. Han Li's expression changed, and he let out a loud shout. His figure suddenly became blurry. Then, with a shake, 3 identical Han Lis eerily appeared. They stood side by side, ready for battle. This scene naturally caught Chi Huo off guard, who was just trying to distinguish the real from the fake among them. The 3 Han Lis simultaneously sneered and flicked their sleeves, unleashing 3 long golden hairs that shot out from their sleeves, fiercely slashing towards Ajao. Ajao was taken aback. He saw 3 golden lights rushing in from 3 directions. Panic surged in his heart. He could only hurriedly aim his waste spray. He faced the golden light in the scene. The 2 sharp claws split apart with a brilliant flash. Suddenly, they lunged at the other 2 golden lights. Although he had already witnessed the sharpness of Han Li's flying sword, he didn't believe that all 3 golden lights were real. They must be like the 3 enemies, 2 fakes and 1 real. If the one that the demon pill was blocking was real, then naturally, his life would be safe. But if it was fake, his 2 claws would still be in a precarious position. He was prepared to sacrifice 1 claw, temporarily holding off the real flying sword. He would directly use the waste spray to kill Han Li's real body. Unfortunately, just as this thought turned in his mind, a loud crash echoed. The red glow suddenly burst forth, pushing the golden light opposite him back into the trees. The original form of the flying sword was revealed. The flying sword was indeed real. It was the fire sword. This thought crossed his mind, but just as it appeared, the other 2 golden lights simultaneously glimmered brightly. This thought suddenly crossed his mind, but as soon as this idea appeared, the other 2 golden-haired figures smoothly and generously moved at the same time. In a flash, both claws were measured at the same time. Then, an unbearable pain suddenly struck. The 2 claws were instantly severed by the golden-haired beast. Then, it shot like lightning towards Ajao. Ah! The monster let out a sharp scream. Its body shimmered with light, trying to dodge. But at that moment, beneath its feet, a purple lotus suddenly bloomed. As it passed by, a chilling aura erupted violently, instantly causing it to shiver. It hesitated involuntarily, and in that brief moment, 2 beams of golden light burst forth, dazzling, crossing around the monster's head. With a crack, a massive head rolled down from its neck. The scales at its neck couldn't stop the strike at all. It turned out that just moments ago, Han Li's fingers hidden in his embroidered robe simultaneously formed a seal, gathering most of his spiritual power into the 2 flying splashes, allowing the terrifying power to fully manifest. The splashes became unstoppable in an instant. Almost nothing could block them. At this time, the other 2 beams of light from Han Li flickered, then disappeared without a trace in place. Below, they vanished without a trace. At the moment, the guard's weapon fell. Han Li's movements didn't pause for a second. She lunged forward, splashing and then suddenly thrusting. The paper ladder made a loud sound. 2 thick golden pots simultaneously sprang from the sword's body, transforming into a golden electric net under the fly's head cover. Almost at the same time, from the neck of the reef corpse that was opened, a sudden flash of red light, a tiny red spark, frantically shot into the air, but it just happened to dive straight into the shocking net boat. As it realized something was wrong and tried to escape, the electric net had already closed, leaving it trapped like a bird in a cage. At this moment, its soul felt like it was being torn apart. Desperately, it spewed out strands of red light, hitting against the golden net, trying to break free and escape. But Han Li, who was already prepared, snorted coldly. Without doing anything visible, the electric net began to shrink rapidly. Moments later, it trapped that gelatinous soul in the small space that had expanded significantly. Unlike dealing with ordinary embellishments, it didn't immediately detonate the electric net to strangle it. Instead, with a wave of her hand, a small green bottle floated into her palm. She raised her hand and casually gestured towards the electric net. Countless thin golden threads burst out from the net, intertwining towards the center. The soul desperately dodged, but in such a small space, there was nowhere to escape. Moments later, it was caught, and turned into a golden silk ball the size of a fist, no longer able to struggle at all. At this moment, Hanli gently shook the small bottle in her hand towards the golden ball. A beam of white light shot out from the bottle. In an instant, it enveloped the golden silk ball and sucked it into the bottle. Hanli finally relaxed her expression. Although this spiritual concealment technique was just a minor skill, it was indeed quite useful in actual combat. No wonder Golden Cloud Mountain regarded this secret technique as a treasure, she murmured to herself. Then, with a wave towards the zombie engulfed in flames, she reached out into the void. Instantly, another golden splash flew back from the tail of the glue. Following that, the head and body were also retrieved and absorbed into the prepared storage bag. As for the level 8 waste token that had lost its owner, naturally, Hanli wouldn't forget it. She carefully collected it with a healing charm. The surrounding waste circle and sea of fire, now, without the support of the Scarlet Fire Reef's magic, naturally began to dissipate little by little. Seizing this opportunity, Hanli shifted her gaze, looking towards the other battlefields. As a result, his brows furrowed unconsciously. Those who were robbed looked fine. Relying on numbers, they had a slight edge over the level 7 alchemy. The fight was evenly matched. They didn't show any signs of being at a disadvantage. On the other side, the situation was dire for the Nanomancers. Things were looking bad. They were completely suppressed by that level 8 blue beast. They seemed a bit lost. Level 8 monsters are rare and hard to find. One rider should just take care of this one. A flash of light appeared in the Han family's tomb. He muttered to himself. Then a bright light burst forth from him. He was about to fly straight out. Han, don't be too greedy. I can sense other cultivators. They're flying this way. If you delay any longer, you might not be able to leave. The South Sea Gate has put in a lot of effort to hunt down these alchemy. It's also for the level 8 monsters. If you kill them all, they won't let it go easily. The big-eyed deity suddenly transmitted a message. The South Sea Gate people are coming. They sure are quick. Then let it be. It's a bit of a pity. But let's just leave it at that. After Han Luwinian confirmed this with the Divine Stone, he said with a grim expression, and just before the last bit of inviting clouds dispersed, he vanished into thin air, concealing his figure, quietly leaving this place. At this moment, the level 8 blue gel sensed the fall of the fire gel beneath the meridians, launched an all-out, frenzied attack, causing the already heavily pressed big man to be immediately on the brink of danger. The big man secretly groaned, not daring to voice his intent to retreat. Just then, two spots in the distant sky simultaneously flickered with spiritual light. Then two groups of over 10 cultivators each shot in from two directions. Upon seeing this, Bajolanjiang instantly knew it was bad news. He hurriedly suppressed his raging anger, letting out a sharp laugh. Without saying another word, he dove into the sea. The other level 7 gels, upon hearing this, followed suit, diving in as well. But this time, neither the big man nor the other cultivators would let them slip away so easily. They immediately pursued and entangled them relentlessly. Don't let them easily escape into the sea. For a moment, the fighting became even more dangerous and fierce. Hanli had no interest in the ongoing battle at all. After flying 100 miles, he immediately unleashed his shield light. Without looking back, he darted deep into the sea. He needed to find an uninhabited spot on the water's surface to begin crafting the mechanical puppet of that great-eyed deity. Only then could he proceed. Hanli had long since memorized the map of this sea area, following the directions marked with modifications. He flew for half a month. Finally, he landed on an unnamed small island. The island wasn't large, only about 40 square miles. However, there was an inconspicuous low-grade spiritual vein on the island, approximately 7 to 8 miles long. If it were on the mainland, it would have been blown to bits by some unknown small family long ago. But in this sea filled with demon beasts, how could a family without some strength dare to settle here? Yet, small to medium families with higher level modifications wouldn't be interested in such an inconspicuous spiritual vein. Moreover, this deserted island was not located near any pirates. Its position was quite remote, having been abandoned for a long time. Hanli, however, was very satisfied with this place. He immediately released a number of flying splashes inside a small mountain cave on the island. Immediately, within a small mountain on the island, a splash of energy was released. A large open space was created. Then, the heavenly base was released. Suddenly, a delicate small cave appeared right in front of him. To be cautious, just to be careful in between, Hanli not only activated the cave's inherent restrictions, but also set up a concealment array outside the small cave, summoning a thick white mist. This enveloped an area of over 10 miles, including the peaks, making it nearly impossible for others to discover the cave's location. After making these preparations, Hanli then moved the spirit insects and spirit herbs he carried with him into the city's medicinal garden within the cave. The earth armor dragon was also placed under the restrictions and casually tossed into a room for sale. Then, he took a large amount of materials into a secret chamber. These materials were only enough for one refining session. If any key aspect went wrong during the refining, there would be no time to find a replacement. But there's no time to look for a replacement. What are the chances of success? But honestly, I have no confidence in it. After all, I'm the one taking action on behalf of my senior. If I misunderstand even a little, it could lead to failure in the process. I also entered the secret chamber. Hanli quickly pulled down the bamboo tube behind him. It stood right in front of me. I naturally know about this calmly. Before the refining, I will carefully explain the refining process in detail to you. I will repeatedly ask about your understanding until you truly grasp it perfectly before letting you take action. Before I explain, take a look at this inspection piece first. It contains the general information about how I refine puppets. Take a moment to comprehend it as a whole before we continue. The voice of the great eye god came from the bamboo tube. It seemed he had already considered this matter. He appeared confident and composed. Then, with a soft pop, a piece of white jade flew out from within. Hanli caught it in one swift motion. Since the senior is aware, I can rest assured. Hanli nodded. Saying no more, he sat down with several plates of food. He immersed the divine stone in the encounter. Time passed little by little. The expression on your face began to change constantly. There was surprise and excitement, which eventually turned into a look of realization. It was unclear how long it had been, but after letting out a long breath, he finally pulled the divine stone out from the jade. But she didn't speak right away. Instead, her eyes immediately closed. She quietly sat on the ground, lost in thought. A full quarter of an hour later, Hanli opened her eyes. Her expression had returned to calm. Indeed, if this puppet were successfully refined, its power would be truly unmatched. As long as there are enough snacks to hire someone, the later modifications shouldn't fall behind. However, there's one thing I still don't quite understand. I hope the senior can give Sister Xian a little guidance. Just a brief hint. Finally, Hanli spoke up. Since you plan to completely pass on this puppet technique to me, naturally, you won't hold anything back. Feel free to ask me anything, the big-eyed deity said without hesitation. Since the senior has said so, I won't be polite then. According to what I've learned before, the higher the level of the puppet technique, the more powerful the soul fusion required. For this puppet, senior, I really can't think of what kind of beast soul fusion would fully unleash its power. Even the level 8 red live gel soul I just captured probably wouldn't be suitable, right? And the fact that the senior hasn't mentioned anything about soul fusion leaves me a bit puzzled. Does the senior have any other plans? After you furrowed your brows, you asked seriously, I actually have a question. So it turns out it's about this matter. A shocking situation. When I was researching the refining method, I already had a solution. Originally, if you hadn't asked, I planned to explain it to you first. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be able to refine it with peace of mind. Right, the big-eyed deity said in a dark tone. Senior, you're joking, but to truly unleash the full power of the puppet, at least a level 9 beast is needed. I'm really curious how the senior plans to handle this. Hanli chuckled dryly, casually replied, while trying to give him a reasonable explanation. Out of his usual caution, he indeed felt a slight unease in his heart. Although over the years, he seemed to have a working relationship with the big-eyed deity, he would never casually drop his necessary vigilance. No need for any beast at all. At that time, I can just directly merge my shock with the puppet. The big-eyed deity's voice had grown heavy. I just need to directly merge my soul with the puppet. The voice of the great eye god has become heavy, he said calmly, as if he were talking about something trivial. Using the predecessor's soul, Hanli's expression suddenly changed, filled with surprise. Do you really think my soul is so weak that it's not even as strong as a level 9 beast? The great eye god said lightly. That's certainly not the case. The predecessor is originally at the late stage of the Yuanying level. The power of the great eye's soul after cultivation is certainly not inferior to that of a 7th level transformation cultivator. But if the predecessor doesn't plan to reincarnate, once the soul is merged with the puppet, it will immediately lose itself, he said hesitantly, with tears in his eyes. Of course, I intend to enter the path of reincarnation. After reincarnation, this god might even be able to walk the path of cultivation again. After a chuckle, the great eye god said without hesitation, what does that mean? If I heard correctly, the predecessor plans to merge the soul with the puppet, yet still doesn't want to lose the chance of reincarnation. Could it be that the predecessor has some secret that allows for this? Hanli was momentarily stunned, but after all, this was not an ordinary matter. As his thoughts raced, he began to speculate. Han, you really are exceptionally clever. That's exactly what I mean. Back then, I was trapped in the puppet due to the divine ritual. Naturally, I wouldn't just sit idle by. One spent thousands of years researching how to transfer my soul from the puppet without using magical power. The method to transfer my soul out of the puppet. But this method was too difficult and I failed. However, I discovered a secret technique to split my soul. This soul-splitting technique is quite different from ordinary divine thought splitting. It's a method for us to refine the true splitting of souls or spirits. At that time, I will split my soul in two. One part will carry most of the soul's power, merging into the puppet. The other part will carry emotions, memories, and such, dissipating away, and returning to the cycle of reincarnation. Playing the role of a god, I have no intention of hiding anything. Even playing the god, there's no intention to hide. He explained it calmly. But can this method really work? Splitting the soul can't be that easy, right? Hanli listened to this secretary. Surprised, he looked shocked. He said, "Don't worry. The only thing I split off was a bit of my spirit power. It won't significantly hinder my reincarnation. Once these spirit powers are used up, they will dissipate on their own." The Great Eye Spirit said calmly, "I see. Then I can rest easy." I thought about it. I didn't find any major issues. He nodded slightly, feeling relieved. Since there are no problems, I'll start explaining the various components, the refining methods, and the things to pay attention to. Let's start with the puppet's body. The entire body is made up of a dozen core components. The required materials are as follows. The Great Eye Spirit was not polite at all, and directly began to explain, his spirit surging. Naturally, everyone listened intently. Days went by. Hanli rarely came out of the secret chamber. Most of the time, he just used the spirit stones to control several giant ape puppets moving around in the tofu. Tio hastened the growth of some spiritual herbs and cultivate those spirit insects. But for those 12 six-winged double bows, aside from using mud to nurture them, he had a sudden idea. He fed them a blood-breaking pill to see how they would refine it. After all, this pill was very useful for his purple fire. It should also be helpful for the 6 arts double attack. Or so he thought. As a result, Hanli found that even he needed 3 to 4 months. It can refine a single snow-breaking pill. These centipedes can actually be completely refined in just a month. Moreover, the cold aura it emits has clearly increased in power. With that said, amidst the surprise, I only kept the necessary blood pearl pill for myself. The rest were all handed over to the giant source to feed these forest insects. As for those mud grass stimulated by the golden insects, they keep decaying, although it can't be said that nothing has changed. The timeline for advancing to a mature form is still uncertain. Hanli could only endure and take it slowly. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. Hanli had just finished refining a puppet part in the secret chamber. Listening to the words of the big-eyed god, he took out several materials and placed them on the table. His face was filled with a strange expression. "You mean these things can all be added to the puppet?" Hanli asked with a frown. "Yes. The uses of these items are things I just recently thought of. They can definitely enhance this puppet's power," the big-eyed god said calmly. "As for this last magic water diamond, let's just say, maybe the senior has another way," the big-eyed deity said calmly. "As for this last magic water diamond, let it be. Perhaps the senior has another way. It can be refined into a certain weapon for puppetry. But what exactly are these other things? I still haven't figured it out. I thought I could see their purpose." Then, with a wave of his hand, he pointed at the materials on the ground. I was a bit confused. What he was pointing at was surprisingly that long salt chain that had once been locked away, and that day, those fragments of stone found in the abyss of magic. The materials looked dull and unremarkable. The magic essence drill, just as you said. When you gained that knowledge, I was already thinking about what to refine it into. Although this is the only material for crafting the dragon blade, if this is used to refine other magical treasures, it would still hold considerable power. I have already thought of refining it into a treasure, to be used as a magical sword for the puppets. This chain, I remember you saying that it could withstand the splatter of steel, and I immediately had an idea. Although I don't know what material this is made of, mixing it with some steel flies could create a protective shield for the puppets. As for these stone fragments, I only just remembered what he is a few days ago. At this point, the big-eyed deity paused his voice. A serious expression appeared on his face. "Have you heard of the Huayi deity?" the big-eyed deity asked in a low voice. "Of course, I've heard of it. The Huayi deity is said to be able to awaken the essence. It is rumored to be able to transform freely into tools that are damaged, and has the special ability to self-repair. It's a rare material for crafting complex magical artifacts. Could this be that item? But I heard that the Huayi deity is white, like beautiful jade. So, how could it look so unremarkable? Han Li was also taken aback. Staring at these fragments of the stele, he asked, Han kid, you don't need to worry. These are indeed the essence of transformation, but they have been modified by ancient techniques, mixed with other materials and refined. In ancient times, they were called Qilin soft jade. The only ones who could recognize their modifications would be poets. I also saw some related materials in an ancient cave dwelling years ago, but I had long forgotten about it. If it weren't for something that recently reminded me, related to this item, I still wouldn't be able to identify it now. The great deity said it was Lin Ruin Yu. What makes him different from ordinary deities? Han Li seemed to ponder this. Didn't you notice that back then? These deities, after refinement, can not only maximize their shape-shifting restoration abilities, but also absorb magical attacks. An attack filled with spiritual energy can easily be weakened by this item. It can reduce the impact by more than half. The only downside is that they fear direct attacks from the object itself. After all, they have no defensive capabilities at all. But even so, this makes these deities still quite valuable. The great deity explained. I see. So, you intend to use these deities as the core components for the puppets. Hearing Lin Ruin Yu's remarkable effects, Han Li's expression naturally brightened. He couldn't help but ask, is there any doubt about that? This deity, combined with your recent chance, is undoubtedly excellent material for crafting puppet shells. The shells made from these two materials could withstand destruction even without any defensive artifacts. There aren't many in the human realm who could easily destroy them, the deity proudly stated. Following the senior's advice, Han Li naturally agreed without hesitation, saying, yes, let's not touch these things for now. First, let's refine the other components before anything else. It will probably take another year. By then, we should have most of the components refined. Then we can merge them into a complete puppet. For now, let's continue refining the components. All right. Han Li agreed. With a flick of his sleeve, a burst of azure mist swept by. The materials on the ground instantly vanished. Then he clapped his storage bag, and 7 or 8 jade boxes filled with other materials appeared in front of him. Han Li began refining the next puppet component. Spring passed, and autumn came. Time went by day. For a cultivator, over a year is almost just a blink of an eye. During this time, aside from refining puppets behind closed doors, those 12,600 million dual bows unexpectedly advanced with a monthly stimulation from the snow breaking. After a round of molting, these centipedes not only grew much larger than before, but also finally sprouted a pair of snow-white wings. As they flew, not only did their speed increase significantly, but they also became exceptionally agile. This was quite a pleasant surprise. However, after this advancement, the effectiveness of the snow breaking on the 600 million dual bows. After breaking the snow, consider the effect on the 600 million double bows. Immediately reduce it drastically. The effect before the advancement is not as obvious anymore. On this day, he stood in the middle of the secret room with his eyes tightly closed. In front of him appeared a glowing humanoid figure, suspended in midair. His fingers were bouncing continuously, shooting out 10 golden threads, directly piercing into various parts of the puppet's body. His expression was solemn, and at the top of the silver puppet's head, a bamboo tube emitted a faint green light, slowly rotating. After an unknown amount of time, Han Li's expression shifted. His index finger paused, finally opening his eyes. It seemed there were no issues. The fusion of the puppet's parts was quite perfect. It was truly unexpected that the components could be assembled so smoothly. Han Li stared at the object in front of him, revealing a hint of joy. He said, this puppet was created through my research, under my guidance. It naturally wouldn't go wrong. Since everything is fine, it seems we can start the soul fusion. The voice of the great eye spirit came faintly from the bamboo tube. Senior, are you really going to do this? Shouldn't we think it over a bit more? No need to think about it any further. This is the first time the soul-splitting technique has been used by a senior. There might be some unexpected outcomes. It will greatly affect the senior's reincarnation. Moreover, once the soul is split, the remnants of the senior's soul will surely dissipate. It won't be able to hold on any longer. Upon hearing this, the expression on his face turned serious. He asked gravely, in my life, I've poured most of my efforts into the puppet tree, merging my spirit with this puppet. That was my original wish. Besides, I don't recognize the path of severing. The soul hunting technique will soon be showcased. So, what is there to hesitate about? You don't need to persuade me any further. Instead, I have already passed on the remaining techniques to you. I hope you can carry it on. Don't let the legacy be broken. The great I God chuckled lightly, speaking nonchalantly. After hearing this, Hanli furrowed his brows, and after a moment, let out a long sigh. Since you are so resolute, Senior, I won't say much more. I wish you all the best. The great I God laughed heartily a few times. The big-eyed deity laughed a few times. The bamboo tube suddenly flashed with a faint light from the middle. It split into two halves out of nowhere. A small figure, shining like gold, suddenly appeared there. This figure was a puppet just a few inches tall. It was made of neither metal nor wood, and was exceptionally exquisite. It vaguely resembled a middle-aged man shrunk down by hundreds of times. His appearance was refined and elegant. At this moment, the little figure's eyes glowed green, and he sat cross-legged directly. A low, sudden sound of rain immediately followed. A point of green light flew out from the little figure's mouth, transforming into the size of a fist, casting his form within it. Upon seeing this, Hanli's lips moved slightly, but no words came out. As the sound of rain grew more urgent, the green light gradually became dazzling, making it almost impossible to look directly at it. With tears in her eyes, she squinted, her pupils constricting as blue light flickered incessantly. Then, a deep sigh of pain escaped from the eyes of the figure. The entire secret chamber buzzed with a sound. As Hanli's expression changed, the green light suddenly split into two. The larger part floated directly toward the silver puppet, while the smaller part flashed and flew back into the little figure's mouth, once again revealing the form of the puppet. But at this moment, the little figure's head was slightly lowered. His eyes were dim and lifeless. Seeing this, Hanli didn't dare to be careless. He pointed at the silver puppet under the tree. Immediately, the humanoid puppet opened its mouth. A thin silver thread shot out from its mouth. It quickly wrapped around the split light mass. It pulled it into its body. Then the entire puppet began to tremble violently. Hanli's expression darkened. Without saying a word, he opened his mouth. A purple light burst forth from his mouth. It instantly struck the puppet's body, instantly recorded onto the puppet's body. The voice of Xyla echoed in the atmosphere. A thick layer of ice rapidly spread over the puppet. In an instant, the entire puppet was frozen. It turned into a massive block of ice. At that moment, Hanli finally breathed a sigh of relief. He raised his hand to glance at the little figure in midair. A hint of sincerity showed on his face. So this is what it feels like to have a split soul. It's truly an extraordinary experience. In this world, only I, the deity, can truly understand this sensation. The voice of the great I God echoed with wild laughter. Suddenly, it came from the little figure, but the voice was clearly weak and feeble. It sounded as if it had just recovered from a serious illness. Senior, are you all right? Are you okay, Senior? I can't help but ask in this life. Don't worry. Although I won't last long after the soul separation, I can still be safe and sound for another 10 days or so. Hurry up and complete the fusion of this puppet soul. That way, I can witness the true power of this puppet before I dissipate. The big-eyed deity urged excitedly. That's only natural. But before that, let me use the soul-binding talisman to help stabilize the soul for you. Don't mention any accidents. Hanli raised her eyebrows. With a flick of her embroidered robe, a blood-red captive flew into her hand. The soul-binding talisman is a very rare captive. Using it on someone like me, who is about to die, seems a bit wasteful, doesn't it? The voice playing the deity sounded a bit surprised. This item was also one of the reasons I eliminated the last opponent. It was found in a modified storage bag. No matter how precious it is, it belongs to Baida. So, what's there to regret? Hanli said lightly. Then, with a flick of her wrist, the blood-red captive suddenly transformed into a blood beam and shot out, landing on the little puppet. A burst of blood erupted from the mass. Quickly absorbed by the puppet's body, a burst of blood energy erupted. It was quickly absorbed by the little figure's body. Not bad. I feel much better. But this is the second time you've actively used this blessing. Don't expect me to owe you any favors. The voice of the big-eyed deity immediately became a bit louder. With a hint of the same, it returned to nothing. That's just how it is. It's just the interest from the help you got from your senior before. After a moment of silence, Han and I replied calmly. Playing the role of the deity, he snorted a few times. Suddenly, he thrust both hands forward, presenting two halves of a bamboo tube. With a wave of his hand, two whooshing sounds echoed. The two bamboo pieces flew towards him, instantly enclosing the little figure within, restoring the entire bamboo tube's shape. Then the bamboo tube floated down from the air. It stood back up in front of Hanli. At this moment, Hanli didn't wait for the big-eyed deity to say anything. He waved one hand towards the massive puppet eagerly. The puppet quickly moved. The humanoid puppet began to dissolve slowly with the ice on its body. Hanli then sat cross-legged again. Suddenly, he slapped the top of his head with one hand. A green light burst forth from the top of his head. A greenish mist appeared and shot towards the humanoid puppet. 3 months later, on the nameless deserted island where Hanli was located, suddenly a blue-red light shot up into the sky. 3 months later, on the nameless deserted island where Hanli was, suddenly, a green-red light shot up into the sky. It soared into the sky. In the vast Linhai of Kuju Island, it is a little-known island. It is shrouded in blue mist all year round. The island and its master, the old man of Kuju. Although unknown in the inland cultivation world, there are many who know of him due to certain reasons in the later stages of cultivation. Most of them regard this master of Kuju Island with caution. In overseas circles, the old man of Kuju is even more renowned, although he is at the mid-stage of Yuanying, relying on the 365 bamboo spears and the divine Tiasang tree on Kuju Island. He has long been regarded as an existence of the same level as the 3 immortals overseas. The Tiasang tree serves as the foundation of the island, establishing a great town of 10,000 trees. The temple has suppressed countless cultivators overseas for thousands of years, making it one of the well-known ancient wonders overseas. Even those at the late stage of Yuanying who dare to enter the town would have their abilities reduced by a third. But on this day, an unexpected guest arrived above the island. Even if a late-stage Yuanying cultivator intruded into the town, they would still have their powers diminished by a third. But on this day, an unexpected guest arrived above the island.